Welcome to Medscape. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Wilner. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome my old friend and colleague, Dr. Salim Benbadis. Dr. Benbadis is the author of a very interesting article just published in Practical Neurology, and he's here today to tell us about it. Dr. Benbadis is professor of neurology at the University of South Florida and director of the Comprehensive Epilepsy Center and EEG lab at the university. He has Dr. Benbadis, I'm going to ask you how many EEGs you've read, okay, at the end, so you can mentally tally them up. But it's probably in the hundreds of thousands, right? At least. So tell us about the article.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. The article was born when, as often articles are, when I became a little bit irritated at the way we tend to use and order EEGs, because I think we have not adjusted to the times. And I have run into many situations where neurologists order a routine EEG, for example, or a stat EEG even, they want it now, when it really isn't the best way to diagnose seizures. And we have a way that's easy and cheap and that everybody has, and that is the cell phone, towards using more and more cell phone videos for diagnosis.
So I read the article and I thought you went through it very meticulously, because people are obviously going to jump on it and say, well, you know, you can't diagnose seizures without the brain waves. And I guess technically that's true. And that even experts, right, will make mistakes when they watch a video, that it could be pseudo seizures, for example. On the other hand, would you say that if you saw a video of a tonic-clonic convulsion, you know, a casual spur of the moment cell phone video, what do you think your sensitivity and specificity would be without the EEG?
For a generalized tonic-clonic convulsion, I would dare to say 100%. And even non-specialists, I think, would be very close to 100%. But as you said, there are more difficult situations or iffy cases. And by no means, by the way, do I imply that if it's either video or EEG. Those two things complement each other. And I think the better way to look at cell phone videos is as an extension of the history. When I wrote the article, I sent it to several colleagues that I respect. And I said, well, I asked them blindly, hey, I'm writing an article on, and I gave them the title, what is the best diagnostic tool for seizures? And all of them, experienced clinician, as you are not going to be surprised, they said, well, Salim, the best is well known that the best way is the history. And I agree 100%. And cell phone videos are nothing but an extension of the history, just more objective, because histories are not that reliable. It does not compete with EEG. They work together. But as you know, the limitations of EEG is that we cannot perform EEG 24/7 for 3 months. So people who have infrequent seizure-like events, good luck getting an EEG during the episode. But with a cell phone, everybody has one right here. There are challenges to that too, which are discussed in the article, but at least you can try to get a quick and dirty cell phone video, and it's incredibly helpful. Not instead of EEG, but to be complemented by EEG.
To supplement the history.
Yes.
I would agree.
I really think the best way to look at it is an extension of the history.
And it's fair to point out that getting the history from a patient who had a seizure is usually impossible, because the patient who actually had the seizure doesn't know what happened. He might have a memory of an aura. He might have had an aura and forgotten the aura. So it's always from a witness, right? If there is a witness, and that witness is usually not an epileptologist, right? It's their sister or their neighbor, right? So what they are looking at, they don't know, they're not trained of which signs, you know, to look for. So
and it's well known that histories are inaccurate because of the reasons you mentioned. In addition, they're oftentimes freaking out and they're not thinking of taking notes, and they don't remember quite well. That's been published. I think that's referenced in the article. So really the cell phone video, which again has limitations, but is a great tool. And I think neurologists need to start using fewer routine EEGs that oftentimes show nothing, and instead obtain cell phone videos.
Okay, so what should change? What do you think should change?
What should change is one of the cases I give as an introduction is on a Saturday afternoon when a patient is having an episode in the hospital, instead of ordering a routine EEG or a stat EEG that is going to take 2 hours to get hooked up and may show nothing, take your cell phone out, take a video and send it to me, instead of sending me a routine EEG, which is likely to be normal. Now, there are challenges to taking the videos. I get that, all kinds of them, and they're discussed in the article, but it's a much better tool. And the examples I give illustrate exactly that. The EEG was not particularly helpful. The video was.
Right. Well, I'm on your side, and I'm going to give another example. I'm very interested in eye movements, and eye movements abnormalities are often transient.
Yep.
And so the best thing is to get a video. So I've got the video on my cell phone that is not HIPAA certified, right? So already I've committed a federal crime if I video the patient, even if I get their written consent, which they're often not in a position to do because they're in a coma or something like that. Then I can't upload it. How do I put it in the EMR? Are there any EMRs that accept this? I mean, this is part of the history. It should be in the EMR. Is there a way to do it?
More and more, I mentioned that in the article. So that's improving a little bit. The EMR we have, which is Epic, there is a way to upload media, pictures, that's used routinely. Videos, you also can. They're limited in size for now, but that's going to change. That's part of the challenges I discuss in the article. It's too new, it's too recent. Those things are going to evolve if we are enthusiastic about them. Yes, there are ways to do that, but you're absolutely right about HIPAA and other things. We don't know how to deal with this because it's too new. And by the way, you're also correct that the use of cell phone videos, even though my article focuses on seizures, it's well beyond that. Movement disorders, eye movement disorders that are transient, probably also psychiatry, episodes of behavior that might be transient. And in other areas of medicine as well. I start with the seizure point of view. That's the one you and I are familiar with, but the applications are much broader than that. So we need to move again in solving the problems you mentioned. HIPAA, where is it illegal to take it? How do we transmit it? How do we store it? I don't pretend to have the solution to all of that. I just wanted to start the discussion.
Well, there's another part of the discussion that I think is germane, and that is, I have patients that come to the office and I say, well, what happened? Oh, Dr. Willner, I have a video. Let me find it. So 5 minutes later, they're still poking around in their phone, trying to find it. Finally, I'm ready to move on to the next patient. Then they find it. Okay, now I have to watch it, right? Well, it's not an edited video on Final Cut Pro, right? So, okay, wait, Dr. Willner, it's going to start soon. Okay, so I'm waiting. Finally, I see the video, and it might be very valuable, or it just might be the guy's foot and part of the ceiling. And I've invested, 10 minutes, which is already 9 minutes more than, my usual visit. And what is the compensation for that?
Well, that's a very good question. And I touch on it briefly about getting a CPT code for this. It should be, as it becomes a true diagnostic tool, we should move, and I have no illusion that it's going to be quick, but we should gradually move towards getting a CPT code for standalone video review. Also, there is another issue here, which is one of the beauties of videos. You don't have to do this minute. This patient, you could send them home and say, send me the video when you get home. I don't need to see it this minute. Send it. Again, how are they going to send it? Is it protected? Is it HIPAA compliant? I don't have a solution to that, but for example, we have an email address that we dedicate to this where patients can send their episodes or even their side effects of a tremor, for example. We don't necessarily need to bring them for this. Upload your video, send it, of course, through secure ways, and there are secure ways to do that. But this is all evolving and it's new. So the point of the article was to start this discussion, but I totally agree. And it's the subtitle of the article. It's time to look into getting a CPT code for this. As we know, this is going to be like moving the earth and it's going to take forever, but it's time to start this discussion. And that was my purpose.
Well, maybe I'm not the best person to ask the questions because I agree with you 100%. I think it's an incredibly useful tool.
I have yet to communicate with any epilepsy specialist who tells me, you know what, Salim, I don't think those are helpful. Not one. More often than not, the answer I've received is, oh, we've been doing this for years, especially pediatric neurologists, for example, and all kinds of epileptologists.
Now, the AAN meeting is coming up in April. Is there a committee assigned yet to work on this problem?
No, nothing moves that quickly, as you know.
All right, I'm going to nominate you. So
All right,
if you
do
get
it.
an email, that's what it's all about.
Do
Anything
it.
you'd like to add before we wrap up, Salim?
No, I'm glad you asked me all the right questions as usual. And like I said, my goal was to start a discussion. It opens a lot of other questions, but let's go forward and tackle them.
Dr. Salim Benbadis, I want to thank you very much for joining us on Medscape.
Thanks for having me.